so a couple things I wanted to do right off the bat is I wanted to show you one of my call sheets. Let's see where it goes. So here is an official professional call sheet. This is from, this is for the job yesterday. Welcome to the BET, hi all, welcome to the BET 365 shoot. Now this was with Samuel Jackson, and we're shooting way the hell out in the desert. Actually, I was 5 minutes late, guys. 5 minutes late. Bad. Bad, 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 bad. Don't do that. I know. It's like your mentor is late, like does exact thing. But I'm still there. I'm still here. Yeah. But really, for like production assistants, if you're 5 minutes late, you probably will get fired because they will not tolerate it because it's such bad practice. As a sound mixer that they've known for like 15 years and I'm never late, and I show up in 5 minutes late and I could have been over somewhere else, they'll just totally give me the benefit of the doubt. But they won't do that with production assistants. So be half an hour early. It's great advice. Okay, so we're shooting way out in Palmdale, and see, the thing is I'm gonna control this here. Okay, mute yourself if you're moving your thing around or something. I hear something going, vroom, 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 vroom. You cannot tell when it's you, but other people are like, ah! Okay, so Palmdale is out in the desert. It's a town out in the desert, but then you get to Palmdale and you're like, I'm like, oh, okay, Palmdale. That's like only an hour away from my house. So I gave myself an hour and a half. Am I cutting in and out at all? I'm good, right? Yes? Okay, good. All right, so I'm like, it's only an hour and a half. So I'm like, gave myself an hour. It's only an hour. I gave myself an hour and a half. And then once you get off the exit, it's like a good 20 miles, like down this like road. And there's all these stoplights, and it just freaking took forever. Start, stop, start, stop. And I'm like, well, I still got a half an hour, and it's like, no, it's like taking forever. So that's why that's why I was late. But it's not a reason. You have to give yourself that time. You got to study the map. See, if you look at this map here, here's the street that took forever. Look, that doesn't look like very long. I mean, I would say, oh, that's 10 minutes. No, that was like 25 minutes. Start, stop, start, stop. And each of this area here, this is not like, a couple miles. This is like 15, 17 miles. See, and if I would have taken a good look at the details on the map, I would have seen that. See, it says here, go 10.4 miles and turn left, or first go 5.2 miles straight through the traffic circle. They got a traffic roundabout in the middle of nowhere. So funny. And then it says go 10.4 miles and then turn left. So that's like 15, 16 miles right off the freeway. And then on top of that, that's like not that bad, but then you got all the stoplights and you got the roundabouts, and so it took forever. Okay, that's lesson number 1. And this is what a professional map looks like. They give you directions from different areas. And they also show you where agency's coming from, which is right down here on this map. So so this is for everybody. They send it to agency, director. I mean, everybody gets the same map. And so they give directions from like the valley, from the west side, and then from the Mondrian Hotel, which is where the agency's staying at. They put that first because they're the ones that are paying for this whole thing. Actually, the agency's not paying for it. The client is paying for it. Okay, very important distinction. However, the agency chooses the production company. Yeah, this is actually a great lesson here. So to understand forget it factor, who's paying for all this is businesses. That's paying for us to be there. That's how I make my living, is American business. Thank God American business wants to spend some money to reach all their customers to stay in business. Thank God, because they have like a couple $1 million to spend a year. And then they have advertising agencies come in and pitch them. And then they choose, oh, let's go with this campaign. The agency says, this is the concept. We're going to get Samuel Jackson, and we're going to get this director who's worked with him before and can get the performance out of him. And he's also shot this stuff. We're going to get this DP who's a feature guy. And then the client's like, okay, great. Yeah, I want I want that director, I want Samuel Jackson, and I want that DP. So they use all of those elements to get the business, you guys. It's all so much about the business. And so then they're like, okay, the client's like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And he's thinking, or she's thinking in the back of their mind, this is good because then I can brag about that when I'm playing golf, that I work with Samuel Jackson, and that I, so I feel good about spending $500,000 on this thing. It's seriously the way it works, guys, but that's okay. We just know this. See, so as you guys go out there and you'll start to notice these little things too. And I totally didn't even notice any of this for probably a good 8-9 years being in the business. And I was kind of like, I wasn't even thinking what's going on. You just start picking it up, But it's great to know it up front, because then you're like, oh, the client. Now, many of the production assistants that you're working with, they're going to be like, oh, am I going to get in trouble like tapping on my cell phone? And you're going to be like, oh no, the client, the business. In fact, because you're going to understand the get it factor means it's not all about you and trying to have a conversation with the producer so you get hired again. It's like understanding, okay, that's the client. We got to take care of that person. This is the agency and this is why. It's not like, oh God, I got to set that thing up for the agency again. And oh, now they're being da-da-da. And that is so much, you see that because people don't get it. But now you get it because you understand what's going on here. And I was talking to the producer, Kevin, and this was like on the last shoot. And how did it go? It was something like there was a little bit of a complaint that came up. I think even he said it. Kevin said it, something about the agency. And I said, yeah, but that's the business. That's paying us to be here. And he goes, you got that right. That's for sure. And so, it was like, get it factor, connection. You understand that you never complain about it. It's like, oh, whatever they want, they get because they're the ones paying the bill. It's good to know, right? Okay, so here's the call sheet. And let's look at how many production assistants there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 production assistants. We had a 9 a.m. Production assistants had a 9 a.m. call time. My call time was 11:30. We had crew parking, and then location was walking distance, but they had shuttle vans that would take people from crew parking to the location, and that's normal. We were shooting in an abandoned, it used to be a gas station, and then they turned it into a set. And it was extremely windy. They told everybody to dress accordingly. High winds, tomorrow will be cold and windy. Still, people did not dress accordingly. They were freezing. A lot of people were freezing. And I hate seeing that. So pay attention to that. And so it was a later call time. So the question is, oh gosh, later call time. Now usually when we have a later call time, like 11 o'clock, that means that we're going to go till midnight. And everybody kind of needs to know that, because if you got a job the next day, you may want to, I don't know, if it's day into night, you may not want to do that job the next day. You might want to make some kind of arrangement. So usually as a courtesy, when it's day into night, meaning you start late and you go later into the night, they let everybody know beforehand. Well, they didn't let anybody know beforehand. So I was like, wow, they didn't tell us it was day into night. Okay. And then we found out that since we're working with Samuel Jackson, that it's going to be a short day. We're going to be done by 8 o'clock. So we were done by 8 o'clock. So that was awesome, from 11:30 to 8 o'clock. And that was awesome. And he was great. I got to talk to him a little bit. I just talked about Dr. Pepper, because there's this prop thing. We're shooting at this old gas station, which is full of props. Old, weird props, and so you never have Dr. Pepper or Coke in the scene. You probably noticed that. If they do that, they have to pay royalties to Dr. Pepper or Coke or McDonald's or whatever it is. They call it Greeking it out. Like you've got Ray-Ban sunglasses, they'll Greek it out. And what they'll do is they take a little piece of black tape and they'll put it over they'll put it over the logo so that you can't tell. So it's fine to have it there, but you just cannot name it. So there's all of these props that they'll take, they have everything. They have newspapers that just say a bunch of garbage on there that don't really say anything, but they look like real newspapers. They have magazines. They have this is bottles of plastic bottles of pop that somebody created the graphic design to wrap them so it says Dr. Flipper or something like that, And so it exists for all sorts of, everything that you see basically. If you take a close look at it in a movie, unless they've paid for that, which, is great because the movie will make money by advertising Coke or Dr. Pepper, and you guys already know that, but you probably didn't know with commercials, they're just making money on the commercial, so they don't want to pay royalties to any other brand. So they call it Greeking it out. Now you'll notice, and you should pay attention for people that maybe are less experienced, that if you're wearing a logo on your jacket and they can see it, that's a big no-no, because that means they have to pay royalties. Possibly they can get sued to pay royalties for wearing that logo. If the spot has been showing like millions of times, then that's like, and it's a paid commercial use, then that means that they might have to give a huge, huge paycheck to the royalty company. So you just always want to point it out. Hey, by the way, I think that I've got a logo here. We might want to cover it up, because sometimes they miss it. Another thing that they'll sometimes miss is price tags will be hanging off the clothes, because they get the clothes and then they pay a certain amount for them. Then they may use them and they may not use them for wardrobe I'm talking about here, and then they return them. So a lot of times they leave the price tags on there, and then you just want to make sure that those are tucked in and not sticking out. I've seen that happen as well. Oh, I've also seen once where, they try to make the people look a little bit skinnier or make it better shape. So they'll take a C47. You guys know what that is? What's a C47? Somebody unmute themselves and let me know. C47, what is it? Yeah, it's a clothespin. So they put a clothespin on the back, to bring the clothes together, stick it on the back. And somebody was walking around with a clothespin on the back of them, which is fine, but we were seeing the back as well. Oops, wardrobe malfunction. So there's a wardrobe stylist that is in charge of the wardrobe, and that person is talking to the director a lot and also talking to the producer a lot, because clothes is very important, not only in that they need to look good, but they need to look good against the background. It needs to not make that effect. If you have a lot of checker fabric, it can really cause a funny thing with the camera. So they're always looking for that, and they're always looking for wrinkles, or like a funny wrinkle that's distracting that takes you down to like somebody's stomach or something like that. So wardrobe stylist is the one that's working very closely in selecting and making sure that the people look good before they go. That they're making sure that they're approved by the agency, by the director. Everybody agrees, yes, that is that person's wardrobe, okay? And then there's always a wardrobe assistant, and that person is sitting there on set watching the monitor and making sure that the wrinkle is not there, that the armpits are not showing sweat, that there's no logos or price tags sticking out, that the zipper is in the same place every time on the wide shot as well as the close-up shot, and that's called continuity. So wardrobe assistant is always watching. So when you see somebody with wardrobe, you'll see they'll like have a bag, and they'll have some they'll have C47s, and they'll have some clothespins, and they'll have like needle and a thread in case they need to do something. They will they'll usually be dressed really nice. I mean, a lot of people think I'm wardrobe because of the way that I'm dressed, because I'm dressed really nice. They're usually dressed very stylish, like with really expensive boots and stuff and things like that. But anyway, so that's wardrobe, and that was good. And oh yeah, so with Samuel Jackson, we were like, oh, we might have trouble miking him because he usually wears these turtlenecks. Turtlenecks are hard because they go all the way up to here, and then the mic is here, and then sometimes you see the mic, like a mic bump sticking out there. But he wasn't wearing a turtleneck, which is great, because usually he's wearing these polyester suits and a turtleneck. But, it was still total Samuel Jackson, the look of it, because we shot at this old gas station, and then he was like saying his lines inside this diner, and then we went outside, and you could see the gas station, and then this, all these neon signs. So it was just like total, like, the kind of roles that you see him in, kind of seedy, kind of like underground. Yeah, so it was awesome. Four Aces Movie Ranch is what that place was called. And I got home by 10 o'clock at night, so not bad. Oh, another thing. Oh my God, this is a big one. Okay, so other than misjudging how far it is, I have done this before out in Palmdale. Again, I did this. This was like a couple of years ago. I misjudged my gas. So I got off Palmdale. I was, didn't have a ton of time, so I just kept driving straight to the location, which was like 30 frickin' miles way out into the desert. So you're driving. And all of a sudden I look down, there's no gas stations out there. I look down, I'm like, my gas light's gonna go on pretty soon, and I've got to go to location and then get home. I'm like, oh God. I saw all of a sudden it's like all the needles went all the way up my body and my head got hot, and I was just, whatever I was doing, I was just like, fuck, seriously. So, I get out there, it's windy, it was a hard day. God, it was so windy. We're like eating our food and the food was flying off of our plates from the wind and the sand was going poof. So you like eat some stuff and you're like, okay, I better get that in my mouth before it gets too cold and full of sand, and you're just like eating. It's this beautiful food just getting ruined. Anyway, so I talked to the gang boss. I'm like, I'm really sorry about this, but I need some gas. Can you just give me some gas? So he did. He gave me just a little bit of gas. I'm like, you sure gave me enough? Because I got the big van. And he's like, yep, I gave you enough. And he did. He gave me enough, and I got back to the gas station. I was like, Janet, you will never do that again. You must always be watching the gas. So you guys must always be watching the gas. And my practice is, and I think I've told you this before, is I will never go back to my home without a quarter tank of gas. If I have less than a quarter tank of gas, even if it's 1 a.m, I'm gonna stop and get gas before I go home. The reason is I never want to get up in the morning and have less than a quarter tank of gas and try to get into Los Angeles, because you just never know. You might be like, oh my God, my alarm didn't go off and I got to get in there in an hour, and you got traffic and you cannot stop for gas at that time. So if you're low on gas, you are going to be really late. There's no worse feeling in the world than being late.